What's something you always assumed was normal until you were told otherwise? Growing up in Belfast, having soldiers on the streets, until I went on a school trip to London and thought, where's all the soldiers? It was strange not seeing any. For the 10 or so years before my sister and I were born, my parents kept horses. Now, for those that don't know, when horses see something they like, usually delicious food, they make a whickering noise that sounds like hoo 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 hoo. My parents thought this was hilarious and would do it ironically when they saw food that looked really good, as a joke. Now, when my sister and I were born, that backstory was never explained to us. We just learned that when you see something delicious, you make a low chuckle that sounds like hoo 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 hoo. And that's the story of how my mother accidentally conditioned us to whicker like a horse. For over 30 years I tied my shoelaces in such a way that they would come undone all the time, and so I usually did a double knot. I have since learned the way everyone else does it does not lead to such problems. Stranger yet, my muscle memory has completely changed, and I can't even remember the stupid way I used to do it. Being physically ill after moderate exercise. I thought that's why everyone hated it. But it turns out I have a heart problem and shouldn't be throwing up after spin class edit. From what I've read, it's not uncommon to feel a bit ill after a hard workout. Honestly, the workout thing wasn't the biggest red flag for me. It was how exhausted I'd feel after doing nothing at all. And that was happening because my heart was working too hard every time I stood up. If you're concerned, find a healthcare provider that you trust and who listens to you. I say that because I've seen several that told me I was anemic without testing to check and talk to them about the symptoms you're experiencing. Up until I was 18 I followed my mom around the store like a baby duck. It had never occurred to me that I was free to wander by myself or look at the things I wanted. I would just walk right behind her and stay at her side. When I was 14 years old I was at my friend's house and I saw her parents kiss. I asked her if it was normal and I discovered that parents can show affection and love to each other. I grew up in an abusive family. I thought that if I would have a boyfriend, he would have beat me because that's how a relationship works, as my parents showed me. Well, I thought the song Wonderful Tonight about a couple going out and enjoying their night together and having a lovely time was fucking absurd until I was about 15. Because in my household everything, every journey, every holiday, every night out my mother took with her partner ended up in screaming and violence. I just didn't think it was possible for people to go out and have a lovely time and thought the song was really stupid and unrealistic because of it. I thought parents telling their kids I'm proud of you is weird movie stuff and nobody does that. My mom used to buy things we needed for school in the fall and leave them for us to find while we were playing outside during our summer break. We would go into our rooms and find new cool stuff sitting on our bed. She told us it was from the summer fairy. I'm not sure when I realized that not everyone experienced the magic of the summer fairy, but as an adult, I realized my mom is a genius. She got out of dragging us along on shopping trips with her and didn't have to deal with us begging for toys. I don't have kids of my own, but my niece and nephews will experience the magic of the summer fairy. I thought everyone was just exaggerating in movies when it came to hearing their inner voice or daydreaming / having a flashback and actually seeing images. I thought, surely this isn't real. They're only doing this for context. That obviously doesn't happen in real life. Well, flash forward to this year, where I learned that not only do some people actually hear themselves when they think, but some people can actually see real images when they imagine something. My thoughts are, and have always been, silent and invisible. I can't believe there's people out there that can just hear and see us just by thinking it. My little sister can see and hear her thoughts, and the discussions we have about it are mind-blowing. We used to have a pine cone tree in our backyard and my mom loved collecting them. So our house was filled with it. I thought everyone had pine cones laying around in their homes, and it is normal, until I went to a friend's house and asked where his pine cones are. taking 5 hours to fall asleep. I thought 8 hours of sleep included all the hours it took to fall asleep, until I met my now husband who falls asleep in 10 minutes. I thought he must be able to do that. I'm on medication now. It's down to 1 to 2 hours most days and I go to bed early enough to get 8 hours of actual sleep each night. This one's a little dark, but I used to think all parents beat their children. It wasn't until I was 19 and chilling with some friends and we were talking about why none of them heard about my family. I was like, yeah, I hate them all. The only exception being my brother. Told them about my parents and they were like, oh, no, that's not cool. One of my friends who also got beaten as a kid told me, yeah, that's not supposed to happen, and basically explained how he found out. Moving out so many times and not growing up in one home. Almost all of my classmates only had moved 1 or twice. When I was like 10 I had moved 7 or 8 times. Edit, this my highest upvoted comment. Thank you guys. Neglect. Literally had to learn how to cook on a stove at 6, along with my other siblings. I have no idea where the hell my parents were. They didn't work. My kids are 6 and 8 and can't imagine leaving them to their own devices. I remember we would fry up bologna, hot dogs, ham, then eventually meat/stir fry, whatever we could find. Sometimes it would be just cereal or crackers and cheese. We would take turns frying up our bologna like it was an assembly line. Like, I still talk about it now as adults to my siblings. There is 10 of us, and it just boggles our minds because it was just so normal for us. We were those kids who got their meals at school. Up until a certain age I remember my mom was an amazing, attentive mom, and all of a sudden she did a complete 180. She became addicted to gambling. So much so that she would slang the welfare and I don't remember her for 90% of my childhood from 5ish to 22. Around 11 years ago my mom straightened up. She has disappeared for 2 to 3 days a few times over the years, but I could tell she's full of regrets when she comes home. We have forgiven her because she has had a really f***ed up life. She survived the Khmer Rouge and an extremely abusive marriage, forced to wed at 13 to my older dad who was 35, so she had a lot of trauma. When you talk to my mom, it's like talking to a 14-year-old girl. She's 76 right now. I always thought that the kids in my class were the youngest in their family like me. I also always thought that they had both parents that were married. I also always thought that they had grandparents who lived far away. I also thought that they went to church on Sundays. It's interesting how we as children perceive the world from our experiences, and then how as adults those and more experiences shape us into the people that we are until we die. I thought everyone's mouth tingled or stung when they ate chocolate. I just assumed it was acidic and inflammatory. When I was 15, I finally lamented someone about how annoying those side effects were, and they were like no. And that's when I found out I'm allergic to chocolate. It does not stop me, but it is still scary to know one day it could escalate. I think this might be the opposite of the prompt, meaning I didn't realize it was normal. It never occurred to me I could modify a menu item in a restaurant. I would always diligently read the food descriptions and be like, done it. There's mushrooms in that. I guess I'll get something else. I thought, well, that's how it comes, so that's how it has to be. It wasn't until I saw one of my little sister's friends order a drink at Starbucks and ask for extra something that it dawned on me. It took a while longer for me to feel comfortable asking for a modification. I was well into my teens when I realized Askreddit had a brain fart and couldn't remember the word dawned. When I originally downloaded Points of Authority by Linkin Park from LimeWire, I accidentally downloaded a demo version that had an alternate rap, and I only realized yesterday that the song was different. For what it's worth, the demo version is a lot better. It's kinda stupid, but I thought being nice to others and helping others whenever you can is something everyone does. Course that was a norm in my family. Then high school happened, and turns out helping others makes you slack in the rat race of success and is a non-profitable thing to do. But being nice is normal and amazing, and I still stand by it. I thought everyone could identify a note without a reference note, just as easily as we can identify colors. Turns out I have perfect pitch. I thought that everyone viewed the world in the same way that I did, such as seeing colors from sound, from synesthesia, insert high school crush, and making a mixtape, asking them why they put so and so colors together, and find out that it is in fact not something that everyone has. Definitely maladaptive daydreaming. I'd assumed that everyone else also had a very active fantastical world going on in their heads too, and it was only after I asked my mom what did she think about when listening to music, and she said the lyrics or something like that I'd realized I was probably different. I thought being constantly dizzy, lightheaded, and passing out was just a normal thing for everyone. It's something I've struggled with my entire life. And some of my more vivid memories from being a kid are of me trying not to black out until my late teens, when I was finally diagnosed with POTS. Growing up I thought it was rude to go into a shop and not buy anything. Whenever we went shopping with my mum she always bought something. Then I went to Japan and went shopping with my host mother. She went to a lot of stores looking to buy me a t-shirt. I ended up spending a lot of money that day and was really hoping she'd stop taking me into every store as I felt rude if I didn't buy anything and was weirded out that she was browsing. It took me a week or so to realize you weren't obliged to buy stuff and browsing is perfectly socially acceptable.